Good morning, Vikram, and thank you for again for being part of Chrome
Always
Talkies.
a pleasure. Always a pleasure.
And we had a lovely session last time,
So
very
we did.
learning. I got a lot of chats with lots of people from the industry, the data calculations, how things worked out. So I want to take it from there with you. Calculations on CPMs and CPRPs. What is the future? Eventually, there has to be a unified currency, right? There cannot be different matrices for media planners, for buyers, for advertisers. There has to be some single currency which everyone understands, and basis that they evaluate media across. Within television, it could be digital or linear, and possibly across mediums, which could be digital, print, television. Is that possible, and how do you see that happening, Vikram?
Of course, it's possible. Yeah? I think that to everybody the world over talks CPMs. We, as a country, I don't know why we are talking so many currencies. In CPM and, for example, CPRP are both sides of the same coin, two sides of the same coin. It's the same thing, just represented in a manner which makes it sort of comparable like to like. So I really think CPMs should be put both CPM and CPRP when you're looking at TV. You can, in some cases where you're putting ERs, you put on ER and CPMs. So if you can have a continuity from whatever you're doing in the past, but you can always add a CPM, and I think it's going to be very illuminating when people see, like even for example, take TV. If somebody asks you the CPRP of Kerala and of Tamil Nadu, you'll get a certain numbers, two
Yeah.
numbers, which is more expensive, and people will have to scratch their heads. If you had CPMs, just convert them onto a cost per thousand base, and you'll suddenly find that one market is actually significantly more expensive than the other,
Yeah.
and your entire allocation of spends can depend on that.
So for the sake of our mutual interest in mathematics, CPM, the number of people who watched you. Oh, sorry, CPRP, the number of people who watched you versus the number of people who could have watched you over a period of time. So if it's a half an hour show, the number of people who watch on an average the total show divided by the universe.
Actually, I'll just make it a little, the way I see it is, there's a certain target audience that you're looking at. So whatever, if there are 100 people or 100 million people who are there in a target audience, then that, if you're reaching 1% of them, that is one GRP or a TRP or whatever, if you're looking at them from an impression standpoint. If you reach 100 of them, that means it's 100 GRPs.
Yes, right.
So it's as simple as that. If I do 100 million impressions on a base which has got 100 million people, I've delivered 100 GRPs.
Yeah. So allow me to come to my question. My question is, CPRP is time weighted to an extent. So when you're looking and you look at an average audience of say 10,000 to 14,000, that means on an average 14,000 people have completed that half an hour slot, and you divide that by the universe. Whereas when you come to CPMs,
No. I'm sorry.
so I'll repeat that again. So if you're looking at a CPRP, so you look at the sum total of TRPs, and if you're looking at TRPs for a program, suppose it's a half an hour program. So the basic, if you go back on the numbers, the TRP or TVR of that half an hour show is equivalent to the number of people who watch the complete half an hour on an average, or the total time spent on the show divided by the total time spent that could have been spent on the show.
No, I think you're complicating matters. At any point in time, look,
You can take a minute TRP, number of people watching.
TV ratings are being calculated by the minute. In that minute,
How many watched you?
if for example in a channel you had about 2% of your entire base, supposing you say in Bach's case everybody, so 2 plus is actually what you're viewing, and that's your universe. So that's, you've got whatever 890 million people, that's your 2 plus universe. So if you get at any point in time, say an IPL, say in the 20th over of an IPL, you reach a awesome TVR of say 7. So if you got, that means 7% of that entire 2 plus universe is watching it at that particular point in time. And in terms, the same thing, if you express it in terms of numbers, then you have so many impressions coming in.
So I'll tell you where
the cost is remaining same.
Yes.
In one case you do cost per rating point, in the other you do cost divided by numbers to get cost per thousand.
Absolutely. So you are referring to
time
minute by minute rating. So number of people watching you by the possible number, that is 7%, the example that you gave you. Similarly, in the case of a CPM, the way it is calculated across most media is a threshold of 3-second completion for a video view. The point I'm trying to arrive at is 3-second completion video view operates broadly. You'll know the numbers, but I'm giving a very broad number operates at about 200 CPM, is what most broadcasters come and tell us, the money that they get paid.
Can I stop you there for a sec?
Yes.
The CPRP to CPM, CPRP is actually a currency which was given birth to in the TV environment. Now, let's take CPRP from TV and then move to digital. Here we've got a minute rating, and in that particular minute, if my spot was running, if I'm an advertiser, in that I know how many people were watching me then. I can express it in terms of thousands of people, impressions, or I can express it in terms of GRPs or percentage of my target audience which was watching it. These are the two things. Now, the same thing, if I have to take it to digital, certain equivalence has to be brought in. Then we have to come back and say that what is it for, if I was looking at a complete, like a 1 minute rating out there, is it fair for me to take a 3 second or not? So then, but that's an equivalence point that you need to bring in and say, do I need to make sure that's at least a 15-second completed view, or for it to be counting as a same thing as a view in TV? I think the equivalence piece is a related but separate discussion. So I don't think we should confuse it by just trying to compare a 1 minute rating with a 3 second one.
हाँ, तो
Because
मेरा
then
point
we'll
क्या था,
confuse
विक्रम, मैं
ourselves.
बताता हूँ. What my point was, which seems to be a pain point in the industry, if they are operating at a 200 CPM or 150 CPM, whatever, they are effectively getting paid for a certain threshold of consumption, irrespective of what the threshold is, which I'm saying is 3 seconds for a completed view.
No, actually, with certain clients, we do have equivalence. So if you benchmark, say, a view or as on TV as say a rating, and that's equal to say 1 TVR there or a billion impressions there, whatever it might be. Now you take the same thing on YouTube and say, let's take basically in a non-skippable format. You say minimum 15 second if that's what your thing is, and say it's a completed view out there. And then we say there's a one-to-one equivalence of that. So it's how many people did you reach there? You get the impressions there. You see the total number of impressions you got on TV. You know the cost of both, and now the two are comparable. The same thing if it's in a scrolling thing in a Facebook, you might say, I don't want to, if I'm just scrolling and without sound, without anything in my ads suddenly plays, it's not fair to take it as a completed view equivalent that I had on YouTube and this. So then you put another factor on that.
So we have those factors in place.
So, I mean, the big clients, all of them do work with their agencies and come out with something.
Okay, so let me come to linear versus, by linear I mean cable and satellite versus advertising on digital. We had this chat last time. On cable and satellite, you pretty much have an estimate of what ad was placed in what environment. So you have a lifestyle channel, you have a lifestyle brand, you know the performance of the ad, and you know it was played on a certain show. So it was a good brand fit. Whereas in the case of a digital, you will get the ratings or performance of that ad in terms of a CPM, but you will not know which environment that was played on.
Correct.
Right? How does that get corrected? Do you see any currency for that? And I'm coming to Digitrack, where what we are measuring right now, we do have access to the user level demographics, but again trying to map it to the exact content remains a challenge. What do you think is the way forward and solution for that? And you only brought this up when we chatted last time.
I think the narrative needs to change from both the TV guys and the digital guys. Probably are playing it to their convenience right now. But I think the fundamental difference here is on TV, I'm actually buying a spot on a piece of content and the audiences are accruing. In digital, I'm actually seeking out audiences wherever they might be on the internet, regardless, agnostic of the content in which they are.
Correct.
So if I have gone to a 22 to 40 male of a certain kind of profile online, if the person could be either watching a news program where the ad is coming in, it could be a user generated content, it could be comedy, it could be anything. Now this really throws open a quantity versus quality debate. There are some advertisers who would say, all I'm concerned about is this is my TG, I'm very clear about my TG. I just want to make sure there are certain filters where the environment is safe. After that, I'm agnostic about the content.
You don't want to do a kid basic ad on some kind of a
they might come back and say I'm agnostic about the environment in which the ad is. There'll be some like that, but there'll be other people who will also come back and say that that we definitely need to be cognizant of the environment. Now, for example, there is let's take a case in point that if somebody has placed an ad on YouTube, and YouTube, the ad is being played on, say, now it might be for an adult, but a kid might be watching the parents' handset and might be watching a kid's cartoon on
Yeah,
that.
yeah.
Now, at that point in time, could that be? Is that a legit view? It is a legit view,
There's no way to
but
stop
is
that because the device was the parent's device. How
it's
do
the
you stop
parent's
that?
device. So now, so in which case do you want a filter on top of that which says I only want to be in these kind of environments? Which
Yeah.
so now those, I think it's now increasingly possible to do that. I don't know how many people are really doing it. It serves the, which I think that's where the OTTs. If I was an OTT guy, I would use that narrative
Yeah.
because in a YouTube kind of thing, YouTube is an ocean actually.
YouTube is an
It's
ocean, but I've
fantastic.
had terrible. I'm sorry to say this, but my son is 7, and I am petrified of leaving him on YouTube. And he searches content on YouTube, which to a great extent is supposed to be kids friendly, but the ads that pop in, Vikram, are worrying, and there is no way to stop it.
So so there we are. So now I think that's the now I don't think enough people are having that narrative, and for that matter, take the music programs. People might be viewing any kind of streaming where video is also coming, but they may be listening to music. Now at that point in time, an ad plays, you just hear it as a sound ad. You don't hear it as a TV ad because you might be doing something and it's playing in the background.
Yeah.
Those are the kind of environments which I feel that you probably are not getting your value for the impression that you got served.
Absolutely.
So currently, are enough people having this narrative? No.
Yeah. Yeah, I think there's a lot of work to be done on this front of managing content. But then the fact is, the moment you get into digital and with social media explosion, and I'm equally to blame. So if my son is 7 and I don't have a password on my phone, he pretty much has access to everything on the phone. So there has to be, I think, more than the audience measurements, a function of tech as well, to ensure that the right content reaches the right audience, or the wrong content does not reach a certain level of
There is that.
audiences. That's a bigger problem. Where do you see digital heading? So some numbers we discussed yesterday, very broadly, linear broadcast of any channel, let's not get into any specific channel, reaching some 300 million or almost some 340 million, if I remember the numbers correctly, viewers in a month. And out of 340, about 200 come from, or 220 come through the cable and satellite broadcast, and about 120 through the digital broadcast, which is through through cable and through connected TVs, browsers, or mobile phones. That's almost 50% incremental reach coming through digital means. Are the revenues heading in that direction, Vikram, since you manage all of that?
They are
And
heading.
sorry, and I'll just throw in the second question as well. And in about 2 to 3 years, do we see that revenue, whatever the ratings are 50% incremental, are the revenues 50%? And as the ratings move probably 50% to almost 1:1 ratio, do the revenues also move in that ratio?
It is moving in that direction, but currently, if I have to look at just TV advertising versus online video advertising, total branding kind of stuff,
Sorry, I was referring to linear broadcast. So any news channel linear, no VOD.
that's fine.
Uh-huh.
So currently, the split is right now 25 is online and 75 is linear. That's the
Okay.
current. So out of the say 40,000, according to me, 30,000 crores is right now going on linear TV.
So sorry, apples to apples comparison. You're saying 25/75. I was saying 33/66. Since 50% is
You're
incremental.
talking about reach.
So I'm talking.
No, I'm
50%
adding. I'm coming to that. So at the first, I'm telling you how the money is going. Today, 25% of the money is going into online video, on-demand video, whatever you said, and 75% is going on a linear TV kind of stuff.
Yes.
In terms of reach, you just mentioned that chances are we're getting similar kinds of reach for both online and TV. I think at this point in time, the time spent on TV is still more than what it is on online video. And I think it's coming closer because if you just cut through the shaft and come back and saying, finally, we're looking at TV as really entertainment, sports, all that news, all that kind of stuff. If you have to look like that and don't take into account all the other stuff that I'm doing on the net. In that case, I don't think average time spent, I still think is more on TV than it is on online. Now,
and to be fair, online is a much more cluttered environment, right?
Of course, it is a much more.
So that's one logical time spent issue.
That's a separate topic altogether.
Not only cluttered in terms of volume, cluttered on the screen itself.
Yeah,
Multiple. Okay.
Absolutely. So I finally, what's going to happen is money is going to chase the eyeballs, which is both reach and time spent. So if today it is 25-75 versus your 50-50 or whatever 40-60 reach, I think as time spent goes higher, more money will go into online as well. If you are asking me to stick my neck out, I think the places where TV will remain indomitable will be live sport.
Yeah.
I also
News.
see news. I also see news, and I'm seeing that more because there are enough naysayers who say I can catch my
But
news.
news or live sports ही रहेगा ना, because that's only that is got like the shelf life is now.
Yeah.
Why would
No,
recording?
but the point is, I can consume the news on my phone as well. But I'm just going actually on empirical data across the world. I just find that live news is something that still people who move to go to the TV for, and I think that's where the role of anchors also comes in.
Surprisingly, 80% of the news views that come on YouTube are from VOD, and 20% is live. If you have to study YouTube data. And that's why you've got all news broadcasters. For every segment that they broadcast, they'll have a 10-15 minute clip which they upload, which gets viewed eventually later on. So that is pretty contradictory to the fact that news is got.
No, but when it's-
I only made the point that news has got a limited shelf life, but 80% of
But when
news
news
consumption
breaks, where do people watch it?
on linear live. Linear live.
That's my guess.
That's the guess.
So now if people do catch up and all on news, I don't know. I guess it takes all sorts.
Completely. So 75-25 today, 3 years now, 5 years.
Oh gosh, I guess
Digital, I think we have this gut because cable and satellite is going through a rough patch. Not the broadcast, not the content. Linear content will continue, as you rightly said, sports and all. But this transition and with the bandwidth cost coming down, 5G, a lot of people we talk to are investing on satellite over the internet, right? Winsley. So a lot of new technology is coming, a lot of stuff coming. Internet is going to be like a commodity available to everyone practically for free, is what I see it. And once that happens, then cable and satellite is going to be a Xerox photocopy machine, right? To give a loose example.
yeah. I think in the long run, I do see a lot of people consuming the entertainment content online and on demand. But I'm not seeing that happening in a hurry. I think adoption, it's you overestimate technology in the short run and underestimate in the long run. So currently, how long the short run is going to be, I don't know. But I think TV is going to be there for a while. And there's
You
some
mean
point
cable and satellite?
yeah.
So you are still talking about a cord?
I'm talking about a cord. I'm saying cord will be there for a while, and then at some point in time, I think it will just drop off a
I
cliff.
completely agree with you. I come from the same school of thought. Cord, it's a function of habit. The same logic that we spoke of last time. A newspaper still exists for what? It's a habit, right? So the habit will take years to go, but there will be a huge connection. All new connections, all new people who are watching content now are probably all skewed towards the digital platform. The growth on cable and satellite is something that takes a hit. But the existing connections, you're right, will last for a couple of years to come. Not a couple, at least half a decade. Half a decade to put a number, 5 years,
Right.
5-7 years,
Definitely
10
that.
years. Absolutely. So cable continues, cable and satellite broadcast continues for another 5-7 years. Digital is picking. The industry is growing. Yesterday we had a chat on print collapsing, on radio collapsing. They are not declining. Their relative growth is declining compared to digital, and logically so. But if you look at the absolute numbers of print or of radio, everything is growing. The
Yes.
market is growing. So I think everything is growing, right?
Yes.
That's the size of the market. So we've got a good industry. Good to have Vikram Sakhuja validate that for us. We've got a good industry. Everything is growing. Some pockets are growing faster than the other, which is digital and logically so. And that's it, Vikram. Thank you again.
Always a pleasure,
Thank you.
sir, and the beautiful setting that we've got here.
Beautiful setting, lovely afternoon, bright and chirpy.
Have a great go fest.
Thank you so much, Vikram.
Chalo.
Cheers. Thank you.